Hi, conscious viewers. And we're learning our daily practices. I'm super excited to introduce to you today Heidi Sormaz. She is a PhD, a former university psychology professor, the owner and founder of Fresh Yoga, and that is in New Haven, Connecticut. She also teaches at Kripalu. She does yoga teacher trainings. She wrote the first course for Great Courses, and it was called Yoga for Healthy Mind and Body. She live streams on Studio Live TV. She was named by Yoga Journal as one of the next generation yoga teachers. She's the author of Performing Under Pressure. And I know you have some really awesome, accessible practices that you would love to share with us to connect with that vitality, to connect with our divine. So welcome, Heidi.
Thank you so much. Yes, I'm looking forward to sharing.
Great. So you have a yoga studio, you're a guardian of forest yoga, you teach, and you're offering so many amazing things, especially for athletes. What is it that you come across often that people struggle with? And how do you help them move through that with yoga and breath?
I find that one of the biggest struggles is people actually feeling their emotions. And so everything I'm going to talk about today has to do with practicing feeling practice. So even though I teach yoga all day, it is about practicing being in your body and feeling what's there. And that's not necessarily part of every yoga practice, but I really feel like the clamping down of emotion, any emotion, is what takes down our energy and takes down our vitality and drains the heck out of us.
So in your practice, through physical movement and through our yoga, outside of the mat, off the mat, you're asking people to sort of lean into that emotion, whether it's a struggle with a pose or a struggle in life.
Yeah. I find instead that our rib cage becomes an emotional clamp and a clamp on our breathing. So we literally can't breathe and we can't feel. So loosening up all of those muscles in between the ribs starts to free all of that up. And ironically, the reason we don't do it is because we don't want to have those emotions. So we're clamping it down all the time. So the second layer of it is teaching people how to have what's going on, but also make a quality choice about where they're going to put their attention. I like to use the phrase that pleasure is an and. Like there's a lot going on, and we try to get away from it because it can be overwhelming or unpleasant or anxiety producing. But in order to allow it to happen, we have to actually practice putting our attention on something that's going to soothe us enough that we can actually have those feelings as they come up.
So what would that be?
So what would that be? In a class, I'll usually be starting you very specifically with breath. So you can do it right now. Just take your hands and kind of hug yourself and squeeze your rib cage. And then as you inhale, spread your ribs wide, push them into your hands, side to side, front and back. It's literally called expanding ribs. And with each breath, taking that a little bit deeper, moving the rib cage a little bit further. And then I tend to set an intent for the class of calling up a memory or a sensation that actually allows you to live in your body a little bit more easily. So probably the most straightforward is pleasant. Like, what's a pleasant sensation to you? One of the ones for me is laying on a beach and having the sun really hit my face and hit my chest. Probably not so PC with like skin cancer, but it feels amazing to me. So if I can sit there and breathe and call up that sensation of sun hitting me, it's flooding my system with something positive. So that way, when things become freed up, I'm in a place where it's tolerable and I can actually have whatever starts coming up. A little more advanced, and it takes some practice, is gratitude. What the chemicals that gratitude releases in your system floods your system with something positive. And that also just creates this energy from the inside that allows you to hold whatever's coming up. And then finally, I often just do a meditation. It's been referred to as flooding, where you just call up memories, first of gratitude, then of being proud of something in your life, then of like a sensual or sexy moment, like that moment right before you kissed like the person, you know, because that gets all the chemicals going. The moment where you laugh out loud, where you're like laughing so hard that you're crying. Special moments with family and friends. And fantasy, like future moment, what you want, what you aspire to, what you dream about. And when you actually take the time to call that up, except for the fantasy one, like an actual event that has happened, your system goes into creating all of the chemicals that are a basis for your ability to then have whatever emotion you need to have and not be squashing it down. So you're supporting yourself from the inside.
Right. So that's an intention that you create at the beginning of an asana yoga practice or at the beginning of a day, right? So it doesn't even matter how you access it.
Absolutely, yes. Because when we take a responsibility for our state, that's then what we begin seeing in the world. So if I love the phrase, emotions love themselves. Like if you wake up angry, everything's going to make you angry and you're going to see everything through like the angry lens, right? But if you wake up and you actually sit there and you call up moments of gratitude that have happened in your life, that's what you begin to see. And it changes your day completely. And it is a practice. You know, I'm not saying it's easy. I do think it's simple, but I'm not saying it's easy because I think that as humans, we get into this thing of like, you made me feel this way. Like you see that quote all the time on Facebook, like people don't remember what you said or what you did, but it's how you made them feel. And I'm like, yeah, but you also have a choice of how you feel. Like if I'm blaming you for how I feel, there's something a little off there because I do have a choice. Pleasure is an and. Like even when we get into the trickier things of talking about, like people are like, I'm not physically attracted to you. I'm like, 90% of that is in your head. Like, and you create that and you bring that. And I mean, how many times do you look back at people that you were like so attracted to and you're like, what? You know, it's because you brought it. And when you brought that and then you looked at them, that's what you saw. And that's what you took in. And like the beginning of the relationship, you're only seeing like the positive things and the things that you're attracted to. It's because that's what you brought to the situation. And if what you brought was doubt and you're not sure and you don't know about this thing and I don't know about that haircut, then that's what you're going to see. So this responsibility for our own internal state, I don't think is taught as much as it should be. And if there's one thing people take from this is I hope they will realize that they could choose. Again, simple, not necessarily easy, because emotions love themselves. And if the state that you're in is not a great one, your body wants to stay there. So it does take some conscious attention. But it's also like, how great is that? We can make this switch whenever we want. If we really just sat down and took the time, we could do it.
Right. And from that place of creation with feel-good chemicals, then we can start to roll with that through our day and see through the other lens.
Yeah.
I think you bring up some really, really valid, valuable points. We have become a very blame-oriented, giving up our power victim mentality in our culture. And I do love that quote from Maya Angelou, but it's also important to remember that that quote, and I love that you talk about this, it was actually her holding a space because she was offering that to people. She was helping people to feel good.
Right.
But as we move through our daily responsibility, if we're constantly standing in disappointment, frustration, depression, anger, these beat up moments, then we're giving our power away with each of those thoughts.
Completely. And it's not that and this is why I really like to use the phrase, like, pleasure is an and. It's not about squashing them down. We are disappointed. We do get angry. We do get repulsed by people. And it's not about saying, no, that's not happening. I can't have that emotion. It's about recognizing that it's temporary. And it's like, yeah, there it is. Okay. And now what do I want to put my attention on?
Right. That trigger or that emotion or that whatever it is that's causing us to feel that way is just passing through, bringing stuff up for us to look at. And we can either focus attention on it, go down that rabbit hole, or we can go, oh, there's that disappointment again. What's triggering it this time? Oh, that thing. And now look at this beautiful cup of tea I'm having, right? So I love that you talk about that acknowledgement, because we do have to experience our experience in order to move through them. We just don't want to live there.
Right. And when we get into the habit of squashing it down, and we all do. I mean, we don't want negative things. We don't want to feel fear. Of course we don't. But if I'm squashing down my fear, it's going to come out sideways. And I'm going to be like, that person made me feel this way. And it's like, actually, I was in fear, and that's why I was feeling that. And I'm not really sure about that situation. I may need to go back and get more information.
Right. Which gives us the power in that place of reassessment, acknowledging the emotion, but not reacting to it. Right? Oh, here's my emotion. Maybe that's a little trigger that I need to go back inside and see what's really happening here. Mm-hmm. And it does show up. It shows up in our yoga poses. It shows up in our life. It shows up in how we carry our body. It shows up in how we move through the world. And I love this idea of holding the rib cage and breathing into that so that we can find the expansion to contain the container, to house those emotions, to move through them, and then breathe out into the world.
Yeah.
Right? So it's that process, that internal processing, but not living there. You still have the exhalation. Mm-hmm. I love that. Mm-hmm. Anything else you want to say about that?
Yeah. I think part of the challenge of living in a better place, and I certainly lived for a lot of years in fear and in anxiety. And part of the challenge in being able to take responsibility and call up these more positive states is that we're not taking them in. So it's like a circular thing. It's like you have that moment where, I have a friend that has a 3-year-old, and she just comes up to me and has this like wondrous look, and she leans against me like a dog, and it's just like the best, like most innocent, loving feeling. And there was a time when I probably would not have taken that in. It was just like, oh, what's she doing, you know? But now it's this huge beauty moment. I'm like, I just feel the weight of her, and like look at the look on her face, and take in her crazy hair. And it's such a pleasant feeling. And it's like I want to spotlight it and amp up everything running through my system at that moment, so that next week when I'm having a hard moment, I could actually call that up. And when we're sort of stuck in our more negative places, we're not taking in the beauty. We're not taking in the things that actually could make us feel better, because emotions love themselves. So we're sticking with the one that wasn't so great. But in order to be able to call it up later, we gotta actively go out and find the good stuff and find the things that light us up. Quite frankly, even if it didn't turn out so well. Like, one of the things I used to do is, like, you know, you fall in love with someone and they don't feel the same way. So then you're like, squash that down. It's like, you know what? That was a really good feeling. Why not call that up? It's in my brain. It's in my body. That person doesn't have to know, and I'm not talking about them. So it's like I get to keep the good parts. And I think we just have this way of like, well, once it's gone, we put something else on it, or if it turned into something else, then we can't genuinely have that moment. But we can. And it's like, we can go back in our lives, and there were these, like, I like to call them best moments ever. And they're just moments. And you get to still have them, even if, you know, down the road it turned into something else. And I think it's really important to practice uptaking those moments, and when you're having memories of those moments, regardless of anything outside of it.
Yes, I agree with all of that. Yes, looking for the positive, cultivating the positive, hanging on to the yummy, the good, the juicy, what feeds us, what lights us up. And also, I love what you're saying about these moments that may have not turned out the way that we had thought or hoped, or potentially the ones in the future that don't turn out. Being able to take what works, discard the rest. Take what feeds us, discard the rest. Or as my dear friend says, you know, eat the fish, spit out the bones. That old quote, you know, eat the fish, take in the nourishment, and get rid of the rest. And I think too often we're quick to jump into judgment or the harshness, whether it's for ourselves or others, instead of the beauty of the moment, the people, the exquisiteness in which we live. We truly live like kings and queens here. Why are we not loving that, right?
Yeah, and there's so much to each moment, and if we can learn anything if we practice. If we practice tapping into that thing that we want to keep, the whole thing will feel different. I mean, I think another reason we don't cultivate emotion more is because that's the truth, and that makes us vulnerable. And when we stand up and we feel vulnerable, on the one hand, that's scary to most of us. But on the other hand, it's a connector. That's what connects us to other people. And so if we can lean towards the connecting feeling and away from the fear feeling, then we can call that up as something that was really positive. I mean, just public speaking or being in front of a class, there's often an anxiety producing whatever. But if you lean into it and feel all the aspects that are there, then you can lean towards the part of it that actually supports you in being there. without getting rid of the rest. I remember once I was saying I was nervous before teaching, and she said, "You know what? That means you care." I was like, well, that's interesting. And then when I got up to teach, I could feel both.
Right.
And it was just a question of which way do I want to go?
Right. Yes. Beautifully said. So I know you have this lovely free gift for our viewers. Can you talk about that for a moment?
Yes, it's just a discount code for Studio Live TV, where I have been recording classes for a number of years, where people can take a single class for free.
Awesome. Well, I love that.
Yeah, and all they have to do is go to my website, which is HeidiSormaz.com, and on the social media page, the code will be listed there.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Sure.
It's been an absolute pleasure to listen to your offerings. So thank you so much for those connections with vitality that we can consciously choose every day, those good moments.
Yes, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, thanks, viewers. We'll see you soon.
Great.